you chose one of my favorite objects, the cam. Look at how cool that is. These are the neatest things. I would buy these just to hang on my wall because I think they look so cool. But the question is, how do these cool things actually work? And how do they keep us safe when we climb? Now, when we normally climb, we climb on things that are fixed, like this little piton right here. We would clip a rope into it and keep climbing up the cliff. However, when we climb with things that don't have set gear, we use these things called cams. Now, I will give the camera to Miss Crew, and you will follow me right over this crack. So cams were this amazingly revolutionary thing in the world of climbing. Before, we would just take a thing called a nut or a hex, and we would throw it into a crack, and it would just wedge in there. Cams, you put them in, and when you pull on them, they actively push out. They're called active protection. So we see a crack right here. We are going to retract our lobes, and we are going to place it. Let's find a good spot. There's not super many good spots in here. We'll place it right there. Not the best placement, but good enough to show you guys what it does. You're going to place it in right there. And as we pull down, the cam lobes are actively pushing out. How cool is that, right? Over the lifetime of cams, they came in several different kinds. We had the single stem cams. They have a steel wire going through the center to make them flexible. We had the double stemmed cams like this black diamond right here. Once again, steel cable, so it's flexible. But before that, and I don't have one. If I had one, I'd show you. They used to have rigid stemmed cams. They were actually a piece of metal that would shoot straight out. Maybe I'll put one in a picture. We'll see right after this. They would shoot straight out. But the problem was they would oftentimes break due to the leverage on the fixed arm. Now, they fixed that by putting in the steel cables, but before they used to fix it by threading in some of this, they would thread in cordlet, tiny little rope, kind of closer to the cam. So to explore this concept of cams and the history of cams, we've come to our cat lab. This is our lab cat, Mac. She is a Norwegian forest cat, and she excels in knowledge of all climbing matters, don't you, Mac? Fantastic. So we look at these cams right here, these spring-loaded camming devices. And as I was previously saying, the history of these has moved from these little stems right here being solid metal to being braided cable, so they're able to bend. Now, the reason is because when you have a straight arm like that, the further out you are, the more leverage you have, the greater force you are putting into that arm. So, as I was saying previously, what they would do is they would thread a small kind of cord as close as they could to this cam lobe head, and it would act as this steel cable. It was able to run over edges, and it was the one problem is cord gets cut on rock edges, where steel cable is a little more difficult to do that too. Now, when we look at cams, we have to ask ourselves, what are these made of? What are they made of? Well, they have aluminum lobes and steel cables. So you can see these heads right here. These are aluminum. You want something just soft enough to kind of bite into the rock, and light enough to carry enough of these around to justify climbing a climb. However, down here, we use steel cable for the spine and kind of the attachment point due to the strength and flexibility of steel. Now, the next question is, how do these work? Now, these, as previously stated, when you pull down on the trigger right here, they compress the cam lobes. You would put this into a crack, and when you pull down, the camming shape, which is actually a logarithmic spiral, pushes actively out. So the harder you pull out, the harder these push out. So they're a very interesting kind of climbing protection due to the fact that they are directly, their force that they push out is directly proportional to what you're pulling down on. Now, who invented these cool things? Because I want to take this guy and I want to give him a high five. The guy that invented these was Ray Jardine. He based the cam lobes on a logarithmic spiral, and you'll actually see cam lobes used in a lot of things other than rock climbing. You'll see things like exercise equipment, compound bows, you know, those bow and arrows that look like super fancy machines. Those use cam based shapes to perform their action. This guy was a rock climber, an inventor, and he was super neat and invented something that really revolutionized the climbing industry. So why are these important to climbing? They're stronger trad placements versus their passive protection. So you'll see in a later video, we used to climb, and we still do climb, on things called nuts or wedges. The problem with those is you put them into a crack like this, and you pull down on it, and that pulling down just kind of causes it to wedge itself, which you can use some of these actually as passive protection. But what these really give you is I can place this straight into a crack into a ceiling, and it gives me a bomber placement, where if I try to place a nut on a ceiling crack or an underhang crack, I have to have a pocket that nut is going to get stuck on. So active protection is a very cool thing for traditional kind of climbing techniques. Now, Mac has left us. She is most likely thinking deeply about the manufacturing process and physical mechanism of these cams. So, you know, I thank you for watching this video, and thanks for joining me in the world of cams and the science and history of these cool little things. Have a nice day.